and welcome to the Macro Chat Live Show. This is a place where we talk about close-up, macro, and micro photography. And I have the honor to have Judith Thompson, and I always mess up, over here. She's with us. Yay!
Hi, Janice, and everybody out there.
Yes, it's so nice to have you. She is the director of Harold Feinstein Photography Trust and his wife. I am so happy to have you here, Judith. It's going to be such a blast to be able to go through all of Harold's beautiful work, but also you know him, you know his feelings. We get to really get a feel of Harold Feinstein. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to Corey Levine. Did I say that right, Jude?
Levine, yep.
Levine. Thank you so much, because oh my gosh, Corey was amazing and helping me out and working with getting this all organized, and you saying yes is just wonderful. So I see that Eugene's here, Catherine's here. We're going to do a couple shout outs, Judith, and Jan's here. Kathleen Kent. Okay, Kathleen is here. So I told Judith, I asked her, did you know how I found out about Harold? And she said no. So this is what I'm so excited to tell you. I have a membership program, and Kathleen is here, Kathleen Kent. So what she did was she shared one of Harold's amazing work that I'll share with you, later as we're chatting about his work. And I saw it and I was, whoa, just amazed. And so the members in the program they're inspired by, a lot of close-up photography work. We do landscape also, but when I saw Harold's work, I was just like, oh man, I am just within what Harold wanted is what I felt.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so it was really such an honor. So I've been telling Kathleen, thank you so much for sharing, and for all of you out there that love this particular, photographer, let me know. Just one more thing before we dive into Judith, I just want to let you guys know this show is every other week. So the next show will be April 11th, and it will be with me, but we will have Ross Hoddinott, and he is from England. So that's coming up for April. But if you join the Facebook group, you can ask questions and all that fun stuff. So normally, Judith, what I do is I do a promo on the membership, but because of Harold and you, I decided that I'm going to not do the sponsor video, that I just, for my respect for you both, I want to share the Garden of Psalms, and we will talk about that after AD rolls that film.
Great.
For more than 6 decades, life has been an oasis for the world's foremost photographers. Artists who give themselves to their subjects over months, years, even decades, to show us our world in a new and spectacular light.
I did not consider myself religious when I was younger, but in this journey with the flowers, which I truly believe to be messengers from God, I began to see God's work all over. Looking at a flower closely, no matter how wild or wondrous your imagination is, just what exists in the flowers we see is such a miracle. It's a gift, and honoring the gift with your work is your responsibility, with a way of showing the gratitude. And so the simple technique that I teach my students is when your mouth drops open, click the shutter. And it is this shock of recognition, this joy, this wonder that shows itself in great art. To me, photography is a way to do just that, to call out in a moment of awe, will you look at that? Will you look at that? Getting people to to see the gifts they've been given. Life itself, life along the roadside with the flowers and the weeds and the pebbles and the trees and the sounds of birds, and looking up and seeing the clouds and the light and the shadows. We're surrounded, we're in it. And did you know that the Persian word for paradise means an enclosed garden? We're in paradise, and we don't see it. What a waste. Wake up, wake up.
Just sitting here chatting. We're chatting behind the scenes, everyone. So I wanted to say, now I know you guys, I saw Jan saying so beautiful. Yes. And wait till you hear about what Judith has to say about Harold. I do want to tell you, Judith, that, being a teacher myself, I had so much respect on how he taught. Mm-hmm. We're going to also put down links below, you guys. You know that we do that. And I wish I could have actually do a lot more of his teachings. We have a couple videos for you guys, but we decided, I decided that just to do a little bit so Judith can chat. And one of the things that I definitely would like to know, and because you had the journey with him, I'd like to know, how did he, I know he's a street photographer, but I would love for you to talk about his journey within the photography realm.
Mm-hmm. Well, he started photographing when he was 15. And he was a person who was always artistic. He had an artistic temperament as a child and was always also kind of a free-spirited guy. And he left school at the age of 15. He dropped out of school in Brooklyn. He was born in Coney Island. And Coney Island was his sort of most well-known portfolio of his work is the black and white Coney Island work. Mm-hmm. So he picked up a Rolleiflex camera. This would have been 1946, and went out on the streets. And just his motto throughout his life and to all his students was, when your mouth drops open, click the shutter. And for him, because of his approach to life and who he was as a person, it never took him long to find things that made his mouth drop open. So for him, he had a real relationship to beauty. And he could go into the Korean War and find beautiful things. He was, and it wasn't so much that the objects themselves were beautiful. It was his relationship to life and his relationship to the subject that created the beauty. So for flowers, it's obvious they're beautiful. Mm-hmm. But in many cases, he would go to darker neighborhoods or whatever, and he would always find something beautiful. So he started photographing as a young boy. And once he picked up the camera, he just never put it down. And he got accepted to the High School of Music and Art in New York City. And he went there, but he didn't have the patience to go through math and all the other things they were making him go through, and he left school. And he, by the age of 19, his work was owned by the Museum of Modern Art. Edward Steichen bought his work, and to this day, he's the youngest person that was ever purchased by the Museum of Modern Art. And he started teaching he started teaching when he got back from Korea. He would have been about 26 years old.
Oh, wow.
He immediately became quite legendary as a teacher. So he was a child prodigy.
Yes.
Started everything young, and he was going strong when he died at the age of 84. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes, and everyone, I will share, his website, but I really feel that you should we're a macro show, but his street photography, if they call it street, but I just love his black and whites, and I can see what he's going for. He has a lot of good information. Also, as you're looking at his work, I love the way, Judith, it's put out where you guys have what he says. So you could feel him as you're looking at the work. Each portfolio has its little blurb, which we will share. I actually think that what I'll do now is, why don't we share his website, AD, and then we can talk to Judith about, thought process. We'll just go with the flow. Before we do that, let's go with Soul Shines Through, and then we'll dive in to his website. Let's do that.
Basically, what I said, there's no main subject and background, as we normally think of it. The whole canvas, the whole rectangle or the square is the picture, and it all operates with a life of its own. Now, oftentimes, the gestalt of it, which happens in that moment, really says it all, even when you're not paying attention. But because we're photographers, and because we're interested, we are all interested in what happens on that page. And something happens on that page that transcends what we saw. Something else happens. And what happens on that page intrigues me. And so become involved in that and see, what's going on here? What is happening in that corner that works, or that in fact distracts? What complements, or what note is either harmonious or juxtaposed in a way that it works even better? And so you start looking at all of it. Suddenly you're in the business now. You're in the kitchen. You might as well look around and look at all the spices and all of what happened, and just see what's making it taste the way it tastes.
That's after you've taken the initial.
Before, after, during. You forget everything when you're taking pictures on one hand. You just go, basically, your mouth drops open, click the shutter. But then you start looking at what's happening when your mouth drops open. What is it? And you start seeing more. So the next time, something else is going to come into what makes your mouth drop open, because you are teaching yourself through the discoveries along the way from that which was not preconceived, but discovered in the steps that you were taking, and the accidents that occurred, in the winds. That becomes your teacher. And it becomes all involved, and it's continuously, it's fluid, it's expanding, and yet there's a certain consistency in the sense that there's a consistent personality that we are, through which the entire cloth is woven. And the amazement and the surprise is that it shows up. For all the different ways we've gone in our journey, the central thread of our soul shines through. And if that can happen, then you're in a medium that you love and have gratitude towards.
All right. I have to tell you guys that me and Judith are having a blast behind the scenes. But but let's go ahead, AD, and share Harold's website. We're going to talk about his work. I'm going to ask questions, all that fun stuff. So right now, Judith, everyone's just seeing his work. We actually take us off. This is one thing that I love to do on the show, is that we will dive in. People will see his work up in front. So we're they don't see us. But in this area, I'm going to share, this is what you see when you first come in. Because we are a macro show, I say everything's wonderful, but because we are a macro show, I am going to share, we're going to just slowly look at his work. And I had told Judith before too, if she wants to stop me on something, just go for it. We are going to talk about his thought process, his visions, also, little post-processing. But I'd like to just slowly go through his work so you guys can experience it while Judith talks about his work. So the main things that I want to really discuss in this area is basically his thought process while he's photographing his visions, and then how he would go about post-processing. So if something comes up, just go for it and chat away.
Okay.
So let's go ahead. We'll start with the flowers. This is his first book, correct? Am I correct with that?
Flowers. 100 Flowers was his first book.
Mm-hmm. And so let me know, basically, I do know these answers. I told Judith I do know these answers, but how did he get started with the flowers? And, let everyone know his passion for the flowers.
Yeah, well, first thing to say is that even before this series, he started photographing flowers in 1980 when I didn't meet him till 88, but when he was living in New York. Mm-hmm. He took 35 millimeter slide film, I guess it was Kodachrome, and put it up against the sky, put flowers up against the sky, and took photographs of them. And he has a large portfolio calling those sky flowers. Those are not in the book. These are, a whole different series. Mm-hmm. And these he started because when we moved from New York to Massachusetts, he was getting older. He wasn't really able to do street photography in the same way. He didn't have the same kind of mobility. Mm-hmm. And so for him, he was a total experimenter in everything that he did. And he didn't care how he did it. He just wanted to keep doing his witness to beauty. His homage to God, as he put it. Mm-hmm. He was a very mystical man. He was kind of a mystic and a lover of beauty. So he began to do work in the studio, which is what this is, which was not something he had ever done before. So it was a total departure for him. And I can remember when he bought all the equipment and I said, oh boy, we're spending all this money, what are you doing? And then he started producing these incredible flowers. It took a while. I mean, he bought the computer and all of the equipment that he needed. And then his creative process was, he often would kind of chew on things for a while. It was gestating in him. He would, I would say, are you ever going to do anything with that? He'd say, yeah, just wait. You just wait. It's all coming. It's all happening. And sure enough, because he knew his own creative process. He knew how he worked, and he knew that he was in a moment of planting seeds in terms of his inner vision about it. And then, sure enough, these emerged. And as soon as they did, he got a book contract pretty much immediately because they were unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Yes. And many people tried to start to imitate how he did it and et cetera. And he would get up in the middle of the night and he would write poetry to these flowers. He would look at these flowers and he would write poetry, which is where the expression "a garden of psalms" came in, because he actually wrote little psalms. And some of the exhibitions he had would bring his poetry in as well. So.
Yes. And I did read some of that, some of his, there's blog posts that I'm going to share with you guys that has a lot of information. My mom's name is Iris. When I saw this, I was just like ecstatic to see this. It's a beautiful piece.
So if you go back to the one you did a moment ago.
Sure.
You'll notice that this we might call this kind of a fantasy flower. This has some extra petals on it because Harold put those petals on there.
Oh.
And so what you see. So shall I go ahead and tell? I'm gonna drop the bombshell now. You ready?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna drop the bombshell now before you get to equipment, and let you know that all of these photographs are scanography. They were made on an Epson scanner. There is no camera involved other than the Epson Expression XL 10,000 scanner. Post-production is Photoshop. Now, for a street photographer, this was a very, very different thing.
Yes.
And Harold reveled in it because he didn't care. It was like when the A.D. Coleman, who's the New York Times, used to be the New York Times photo critic, who wrote the introduction to 100 Flowers, says in that introduction, many will be surprised at seeing this array of work from Harold Feinstein, who's known as a black and white street photographer. But as I sit here looking at them on my desk, I see a bouquet of flowers and I see a group of smiling faces. And the sensibility behind them all is a great reverence for life, and they need no further justification, which is true.
Right.
So Harold's, this is not only not 35 millimeter or analog, it's scanography. So the entire series, all of 7 books, are scanography, including the seashells, including the butterflies. So it's a short conversation about equipment because that's what the equipment was.
Well, I have to tell you something. Now, I knew that I knew about the scanner, and when I was in college, my professor, he knew that I loved the close-up. He knew I loved nature. He knew that I love a lot of what I'm seeing, with the various portfolios that we're going to go through. So he told me to do a scanner, and I actually did do a couple flowers with the scanner, and it is so much fun. Beautiful.
He didn't tell people at first what he was doing. He didn't announce it. He just, when people would ask him, he'd kind of skirt the question, or he'd say, just look at the flowers and appreciate them. But he built a black box. He really learned how to kind of perfect the technique. There was a great deal of technique involved. It wasn't that there wasn't.
Yes.
And post-production was Photoshop, And in some cases, he'd want to put a petal in here or there. And when he did street photography, he was famous for doing montages where he would take elements of 3 or 4 different negatives and bring them together in the darkroom. He was a playful guy. I mean, he was a true artist. It was like, if I like it this is the way I'm going to do it.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. See, now this right here, knowing that what I know, because I've done it before, the part in the middle would have been difficult for me to scan. So I mean, I could never do this, obviously. I mean, this is really definitely knowing your craft. And that's when you love someone, when you love what you do, everyone, just do it. And this is, look, I mean, and that's what he says too. I mean,
now that image of the roses,
let me go back
to the yellow roses.
Yes.
That's the one that Oprah used over and over again. This is on the cover of her book, Words That Matter. In her Oprah's Big Book of Happiness, she does a two-page spread with that photograph. I think she published it in her magazine several times. So. Oh,
did she? Yeah, and I actually am going to share that towards the end too. Okay. I'm going to share some of the Oprah's, the goodies that you get, the media.
Yeah.
So this is beautiful too. I mean, we could just go on forever. So you guys we're going to go in. I want to share, this is print. We're going to get into that later, everyone. Mm-hmm. So I want to let you know that this is the image that Kathleen shared with me. Mm-hmm. And I was just ecstatic because of the depth of it. But, let's go real quick to the limitations of paper and then we'll dive into a little bit more. Sound
Okay.
good, AG?
And the limitations of that page, because after all, you stand in front of the ocean and you see the ocean, you see the horizon, and you see forever. You can look up and down, and you look at your feet in the sand. But as a photographer, as a painter, all you have is that one rectangle, whether it's 8 by 10 inches, 4 by 6 inches, or even 5 feet by 10 feet. It's still limited. And the limitations of a medium is the springboard to the creative possibilities within it. It's not a, rather than it being a problem, it gives you the stance from which you can begin to make your statement. So very oftentimes we dream of what we want to say, but until we put the pen to the paper, until we start putting the pictures, clicking the shutter, and getting images, it's simply a dream or a fantasy. But it only gains a reality of its own when we step into the limitations of the particular medium that we're using. A certain number of words, sentences, tones. And this is threatening. This is threatening because when there's nothing to contain it, we can imagine just, oh, it'll just be something wondrous. But the minute we begin to put it on a piece of paper, suddenly we are faced with certain limitation of that piece of paper, the words on it, the ink, the tones of a photographic paper, and so on and so forth. And yet, it's those very limitations that give life to the writer, to the poet, to the photographer. It's those limitations from which the message gains a life of its own. And the joy when you find a series of tones and images on a piece of paper, or words and phrases, that begin to express something that was so deeply felt, and better yet, begin to express things you didn't even know you felt, you didn't even think of. So those very limitations are, in a sense, liberating the dream.
Okay. Okay. So yes, one of the things that Judith, tell us about how he was in this the Smithsonian. Spitting my words out, but his award. And I still want to share images though, AD. So let's go back real quick.
Yeah. Well, I guess the way to say it is that when these images first came out, and this would have been 1999. I think the first book was published in 2000. I think it was just a sensation, and Epson actually sponsored him and nominated him for the Smithsonian Computer World Award, and they also brought him to all their trade shows. So they wanted him to show what he could do with their equipment, and they nominated him for this award. He got the award. And had a very fun time down in Washington with all kinds of other people. Like Graham Nash was down there for Nash Editions, which is Graham Nash, the musician, for those of you in my era. And so it was a real honor for him. It was a real honor for him. And, he, as much as he really is maybe better known, well, he's really known for both of these things, the black and white and the color. But most of the people who got introduced to the color never knew that he was a black and white street photographer. And many people who were familiar with him from his black and white work never really knew that he did the color work. And late in his life and before he died, I would say, the color work was really, he just loved it, and it was partly his health, and he was able to do it until the end, whereas he couldn't get out on the street with a camera anymore. So this was where his heart was in the end.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you could see it. You could see that he took special care on positioning and working the, what he wants. Here's some seashells, everyone. And, let me just real quick. Let me see if I can go back real quick. Oh, yeah. No. Let me
Now,
just.
that's from the old series right there. The 30 millimeter against the sky. And in the book 100 Seashells, they did publish some of those older images. And that's 35 millimeter slide right there. Slide.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Then see, this is what I wanted to show everyone. See, read. I recommend everyone read the information to the right before you dive into the images, so you could feel what Harold is making and really get into it and take time. Now I'm going kind of fast because when I was going through this, I was doing things a little slowly so I could really absorb all of his work. And this one was in Oprah too, wasn't it? Or I've seen this. This was in another media or something. I remember this one.
Yeah, it's been published a number of times. This one's 35 millimeter, not scanography. Yeah.
Okay.
This one's an older image from 1980 or 1982, maybe.
Oh, that's beautiful.
My favorites too. I love that Nautilus.
Yes. Yeah, these are just, and this one looks like, it's just so elegant and so soft.
Yeah.
And yet, the pattern's just beautiful. Now, is this from the scanner then?
Yes.
This one? Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
My grandmother, see, now it's funny, I could feel this. My grandmother used to have one just like this. And as kids, we would put it up to our ears and listen. Yes. Grandma would say, ocean, listen to the ocean. And so not only are the images beautiful and have a feeling, but, you, as all of us have our own way of looking at things. And this one brought, the iris in this one are special
right.
to me. And this one is this is where he's really seen it. Yeah. Seeing this 35 millimeter here also. Gorgeous. This one looks like is too. Do you know? It looks like a front and a back. Who knows? That's what's so interesting about this. It took my double take. I'm like, is that two?
I don't think so.
No, it's probably just wrapped around. Probably. Gosh, it's so interesting. Did the shells come from New England? You guys are from New England, and I just love New England. We go back.
Actually, the truth is, for both the shells series and the butterfly series,
yes, we got to get to that.
We were able to get shells from collectors, people. So there was actually in Newburyport, Massachusetts, which was close to where we were living at that time, there was a shell shop. A woman who had collected shells, and she gave Harold her whole collection. And
wow.
The butterflies came from a place called the Butterfly Palace in Western Massachusetts. And of course, these specimens are all not alive anymore.
Right.
So they're, and Harold was able to essentially borrow them and return them.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome. So it has a life beyond. And what I like, tell about how he talks about, he's so inspired over the butterflies and how beautiful they are, how they emerge from their cocoon. I just love what he said about.
You have to remind me, actually, I haven't read it recently.
He was just saying how he was just like inspired and just like, wow, this beautiful butterfly comes from, a caterpillar and then blooms into this amazing, beautiful, butterfly. It's just how life is, I could sense that like you were saying, saying how he respected beauty and this really got to his soul and which is true. We all are drawn to the flowers, and when I see a butterfly, they say, whoa, I have a private group for macro photographers, and one of the rules for that one is you really do have to use a macro lens. And she just does beautiful butterflies. I'm like, wow, all over this. She's so, every time her feed goes by, I'm there just like, where's this butterfly at? I've never seen anything. This is gorgeous too with the,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
Like an African cloth. I mean, it's so beautiful. Well, I mean, Harold basically, if you know the poet Rumi, I mean, Harold was the equivalent of Rumi as a photographer. He was just in love with life, and he was intoxicated by things. So he lived in a state of awe, and it was always a pleasure to be with him because he had a childlike wonder, you know, in his 80s. He just thought life was fantastic, and he thought beauty was fantastic. And so I'm a meditator, you know, like I go on meditation retreats. Harold's form of meditating was just to be present with whatever it is that caught his eye. And he would be there 100% and just want to kind of drink in whatever it was he was looking at. He really had a love affair with life. And it was contagious. It's why his students loved him. It's why his friends loved him, because he was radiant. You know, he never was shy about expressing, wow, you know, oh, that's the most beautiful thing.
That's awesome.
Everything was awesome to him. I mean, he really loved life. He really loved life. And he loved beauty. And he thought at a certain point in the, I guess, maybe in the 70s or 80s or in the black and white photography world, that beauty had become a dirty word a little bit, you know, things that are beautiful, the critics, you know, disdain beauty. And he always thought, you know, I don't get that. He understood where they were coming from, but for him, it was like that was just an intellectual construct of some kind.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, being in the art world, but I'm so glad that he didn't care.
He didn't care. He was his own man all the way. He was an iconoclastic guy, you know.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
Let's see what we could do now. Is I would love to. We talked about his equipment. What we could do is let's go now. Our critique time is a little different because we're not going to critique anybody's work. But I thought about this, Judith. I said, I would love to have Harold tell us, you know, to pay attention to, oh, sorry, this is live and that's my dog. She does this all the time. I don't know why. I would love, you know, Harold's going to tell you, this is called making that piece of paper come alive. So think of this piece of paper as your space. And let's go ahead and play that video right now.
So when you look at a print, look at it not simply as a picture. It's a living organism of tonalities on a piece of white paper. Now, the photographer doesn't work with sound or words, oftentimes. For most of the time, the photographers weren't even working with color. So it was in that limited range between brilliant white down to the blackest black, and every tone within, that all that could be said in a print had to be contained. So those are precious notes. But even when we get to color, the same applies. Even though we have different colors as well as values. So start looking at your work that way as well. Start realizing that a picture of a flower or a face will never be a flower or a face. Just touch it. If you touch it, you feel it, you'll know for sure that's not a face. What it is a piece of paper. And what makes that piece of paper come alive? But a series of tonalities. The tonalities are your repertoire, your palette. They're precious. Whether the photograph be a literal rendition of a face or a flower or an abstraction of tonalities, does it vibrate? Does it quiver? Does it have a quietness? Is there a long silence in it? In the tonality, just in the tones alone. Start seeing it not only emotionally in terms of subject matter, but in terms of tonality and texture and shape and compositions that are occurring within this rectangle or square. It's a living shape within itself.
And hi everyone, Judith and I are chatting in the background again. We were talking about critique, and I had watched a video about him and critiquing and just about some background. I don't want to say too much, and I'm like, Judith, could you please let everybody know what you just said, because it was wonderful. Because just that way he taught is, I feel, perfect. We have a lot of photographers watching this, and one of the things that happens is that they are so hard on themselves that they just put the camera down and they won't do anything. And it's like, no. So please just go ahead and let them know what he would do. And I think it would really help a lot of photographers.
A real philosophy about education. And he never taught through criticism. He taught through appreciation. His thing was to see what it is that is your particular eye. How do you see? And he would nurture that and bring that out in people. So the only thing that he insisted on as a teacher was that you bring work in, that you get out on the street or in the studio, however it is that you worked, and click, click, click. You can't talk about being a photographer. The only way to be a photographer is to be a photographer. You have to take pictures. He wouldn't talk about equipment up front. He wouldn't talk about technique up front. He wanted people to start to see. He wanted people's eyes to come alive, and that it be their vision, that they're not imitating anybody or copying anybody or being compared to anybody or listening to what the critics have to say about what, he used to say, who said you can't put purple next to, whatever, orange? Whoever said that, don't listen to them. You do it. You're the authority. He was so clear. The authority rests in you. The inner authority that you have is what the true artist is. So people would come to class and they would bring their work, and he would start to talk about their work and what he loved about it. He always started with, look how beautiful, look at that. And then other students would come up and everybody would speak about each other's work. And then he would, if there was something that needed to be addressed in terms of technique or equipment, he would say, you might want to try, opening it up an f-stop. Let's see what would happen if you did that. Or, you might, maybe it's a little too busy up here. You might want to think about this or that. But his way of teaching was appreciation and encouragement, and it worked. I mean, he had students literally who followed him around from course to course. He taught in colleges and universities, but he taught primarily in studio workshops that he taught out of his studio. He had a philosophy when he taught at colleges. He refused to give grades. He didn't want to give grades. So when they made him give grades, he would say to his students, okay, everybody gets an A, okay? So now, relax. All you need to do, you're going to get an A. All you need to do is come to class and take pictures, and you're going to get an A. Because he didn't want to judge people, because as far as he was concerned, everybody had a creative genius within them. And his thing was, how do I help blow the spark that's in that person so that it comes alive? And negative critique is not the way to do it from his perspective. And he told a story one time where he took the grades into the department head. And the department said, everybody got an A, nobody got an A plus. And Harold said, oh, there are A pluses? You can give A pluses? The department said, yeah. So he would reserve the A plus for the very special person. That was the only time he judged. But he really believed that everybody was creative, and that what people need is encouragement and liberation. And he used to say, I want to turn you upside down, and I want to shake all the ideas that you have about art and photography out of your head, take them all out, let them fall on the ground. Now let's start from scratch. Let's start with you. Let's start with your vision. And, and he was joyful. And so it was contagious. And people, he taught Mary Ellen Mark. Famous people were his teachers. And he had such a joy in his way of relating to his students. And his thing was, everybody thinks it's outside of themselves, but it's inside them. And what they need is to get in touch with what's inside there.
Right. And like you were saying, when he saw, wow, do the click. There's a reason that you're saying, wow, whether you know what the reason is or not, just do it. And I love that philosophy. I love it.
Say wow is because, whatever it is that's making your mouth drop open, that's what it is. And it's different for everybody. Some people their mouth's going to drop open when they say birds in the sky. Other people, it's going to be, happy smiling faces or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. But that's the thing, you're going to communicate the best if you're communicating what it is that inspires you.
It's so perfect. And Kathleen, when she got into the membership, it was interesting. One of the things that she had said to me is, what do you believe? How do you believe in like a niche or whatever? And I'm like, I don't even want to go that route right now. I just want you to go out and do what you love and not worry about that at the moment. Just go and it will come to you. And it's so weird. I have to say things happen for a reason. It's so weird. There's a lot of things that are close to me with this, and with me and you chatting together. Kathleen bringing this to me, her statement, New England. I mean, there's a lot of things that is just so interesting. I'm having it's just so much fun to have you on the show. I can't tell you, I'm so happy. But what I do want to say is that, with the way he feels, people noticed him and all that. And I would like to, I'm going to go into Lightroom and get it ready because I do want to share some of the media that you had sent me. So let me pull that up and we can talk about that because you had, okay, AD, we could go ahead and go over, and then this way Judith can talk a little bit about some of I have Oprah and, just like, some of the experiences that he had within his media presence and stuff like that.
Right. Well, he had a great deal of media all his life. For his earlier work as well as this. It was lovely and of course very gratifying that Oprah's, one has to say, to what extent do we know that Oprah chose them? But certainly her photo editors chose them. And I think she probably approves a book cover. So I'm sure that, in terms of the book. But I think what he loved about the Oprah stuff too was they were pulling it out and putting beautiful words with it that were restful or reflective or whatever, that seemed to really work with what the beauty of now what's this one? Is this Oprah also?
I don't know if this one's Oprah. I clicked on that one. I think this is, oh wait, I know which one is Oprah. Hold on one second. It's this one.
Yes.
This is Oprah.
That's the same one we saw earlier.
Yes.
That's called Robin's Roses. Harold's daughter, Robin, died of breast cancer, alas, very sad, in our home in 2000. But this was her favorite image, and so we named this Robin's Roses. And this is one of his favorites and one of my favorites too. And it is one that Oprah used 3 times in her patients, or her publishers used it 3 times.
Yes. I did read some of the articles. I don't know if this one's Oprah, but yeah, this one is Oprah. I'm almost positive because I was reading some of what, they would say about the flowers.
It's more the healing power of flowers or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And yeah, which is true. And this one I think is an Oprah. I'm pretty sure this one isn't Oprah. Yep, here, this must be the beginning of it. I actually shared this on the on the, social media, because I love that, the healing power of flowers. And then it has Harold's name over to the right, but it's just so nice. Beautiful.
The Mayo Clinic has quite an impressive art collection in general, but they have Harold's work. And I think applying the flower work into healing environments is really a beautiful thing, like hospitals and hospices, and because flowers speak of something transcendent and something healing. So, and Harold felt that way, definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Miracle flowers.
I do too. It is true. Just like animals, when they have the animals come into the hospital, it's that feeling in the flowers, and here's the iris, and and I have these in the background. I don't know if you noticed, but I had these in the background for you because I saw them. I'm like,
it's a little blurry, but I see them.
Oh yeah, that's right. We went blurry today. I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yes, and then
that white ranunculus is beautiful. We have that very, very large. Many of these, have been exhibited many times, and blown up as 30 by 40s or larger are really quite something.
Oh, I bet. Oh gosh, I bet you they're just gorgeous. So this is really nice. I enjoyed reading this also. And if you guys are watching this, just pause the video, because we get a lot of replayers. So hi replayers, but just pause what I've been sharing and read it. Take some time and read what I've been sharing, because it's really worth your time. Let's see what we're going to do next. I did want to talk about his books, and let's just share this. Okay, so you guys could look definitely at his black and white, really good stuff. But of course, because we're the macro show here, these are the 4 that are just amazing. But we've seen this. Let's go to this one just to do something a little different. Oh, there we go. So let's go on to Amazon. They are all on Amazon, everyone. And is there anything now, you guys? I know it's I know that you're having a show, but it's not these. But talk about that a little bit, aren't you guys? Isn't
show that's coming up?
Yes.
Oh, well, people know. So I think the thing to say is that first of all, there is a fantastic documentary that has just come out. It was premiered at the New York Documentary Film Festival, Doc New York, to a sold-out crowd. It is really more focused on the black and white work. It was called Last Stop Coney Island, the life and photography of Harold Feinstein, although they do a beautiful section on the color in that movie. And every year, there are photo festivals that take place all over the world. And this year in Photo London, which starts in mid-May, there will be a large, also black and white exhibition of Harold's work and the premiere of the documentary in London. And so that's mid-May. I think it opens on May 14th. Yeah, so that's the upcoming exhibition. And then the Tel Aviv Documentary Film Festival, I believe the film will be in. So the film festival circuit is happening. And on the website, there's a menu item for the documentary, and people can watch the trailer on there if they want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. No, that sounds good. Now we're getting close to the end. This is always the saddest part for me, because I always have such a great time. We can go back to SAD. Unless there's something that, Judith, you want me to particularly share on the website or anything like that. Is there anything that you would? I have something that I would like to share, but is there anything?
I'm good. I'm whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. I have this, I have this. Let me take a sip of water, because if I don't, I start coughing. It's spring here, and we are getting flowers all over the place. Beautiful flowers here in Southern California. But the pollen, I just have to drink water all the time, or I'll just sit here and sneeze and cough. But it is beautiful out here. One of the things that I felt so, I read this and I thought, I'm going to read this if I have time. And I just want to say this. So Linda, senior curator of Peabody Museum. Now, before I go any farther, I just want you, Judith knows that my husband's from New England. So I just have to tell you a little insider. Everybody else can hear it too. So one time I said, my family was saying, oh, you should go to the Peabody Mall. And I'm like, okay. Well, being a Californian, I'm looking for Peabody. Well, that's the accent. When I said, I told my husband, we didn't have cell phones back then. I came back, I said, I never found the Peabody exit. And I said, how do you spell it? And he says, Peabody. I go, oh, Peabody.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a Californian. I'm telling you, that was so funny. When I saw this, I'm like, oh gosh, it was so funny.
Brought you back.
It brought me back all the way.
So this is the Peabody Essex Museum.
Yes, it's a Peabody Essex Museum. She spent 3 hours. So Linda Hartigan, yes, spent 3 hours looking carefully through all of my bodies of work, both black and white and color. It was a joy to me to have someone like Linda look at everything, since most people just want to see one thing. But there is parentheses that says, and that's fine too. After looking at everything, she posed the question, what is it that ties all these diverse bodies of work together? And there's a ... I think it's all about getting up close and personal. And so Harold says, in my own words, was intimacy. Intimacy in a photograph isn't always about being literally close up, though it often does for me. It means conveying the deep emotional involvement of the viewer with the subject. And I have a link that I'm going to put down below that has this blog post to give you guys information to check out later. And so I just love what he had said about about conveying the deep emotion, like you said, that was within us, but the involvement of the viewer to the subject. Yeah. And that's why I said I really wish I could have learned from him, because it is something that I can't express it like he does, but that's how I feel. It's just amazing to me how I feel like he's within us. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to you?
It does to me. I lived with the man for 27 years, and it was always a joy. It was always a joy. And and it was all about intimacy for him. It was a real intimacy with life in all of its forms. I mean, that's what inspired him. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. And life is short. And it's so nice, again, Judith, that you've come here to talk about him. And also, it's wonderful that you are still keeping this up, keeping his work with us, inspiring a photographer like me, the photographers that will see this now, and photographers that will watch the replay. So again, I can't tell you enough. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Janice. And I know Harold would be so pleased and is so pleased.
Oh, that's that.
Work with you. Yeah.
Oh, I got chills. I'm not BSing people. People know that I tell the truth. I really do have chills, because it's just really amazing. Thank you so much, Judith. I'm sorry.
I said you're so welcome.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, it is the sad moment, which is we've been here for an hour. So, Judith, what I'm just going to do is just remind everybody that the next show will be April 11th. It's with little old me. But remember that we're going to have Ross Hodenot, which is an amazing photographer that goes outdoors and shoots. So join the Facebook group or to my website if you have questions, because I'd love to have questions for him. This is the first time, I'll tell you, Judith, this is the first time that I'm actually, AD and I are going to do a pre-shoot, because he's from England the time doesn't work. So this is the first time we're going to do this. We're going to do like a pre-shoot and ask questions, and then we're going to come on the show. So that's going to be interesting because of technology.
I'll tune in.
So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. So then we'll see you guys, and this show is every other week. And please check down below. Check out Harold's information on the website. And if you have questions, anybody, I'll chat down below this video because I'm there too. And I know you'll be inspired, and like I am. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. If you love it, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, everyone. Have a good day, evening, wherever you're at.
Thank you, Janice. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Or good day, I guess.